Hi guys, if you don't know me, my name is Keith from IELTS Speaking Success, and I'm here to help you succeed in your IELTS speaking test. Today, I've done an interview with a student of mine, Qin Yang, and she has some awesome tips about how to help you get ready and to succeed in IELTS speaking. Let's check it out. Great. Hi, Qin Yang.
Hi, Keith.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm fine. But the weather in Changchun is a little bit humid.
Right. And of course, you're based up in the north of China, right, at the moment?
Yes, correct.
Right. Tell us, we're going to talk about you and IELTS today, but maybe to begin, you can tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you do.
Of course, originally I come from Chengdu, the capital of Sichuan province. But after graduation, I assigned a work for a joint venture called FAW Volkswagen, and it is located in Changchun, a northeastern city. I've never been there before, so I think this city is quite different from Chengdu, where I come from. Now I'm a full-time German translator as well as a part-time German teacher.
Fantastic. So you speak fluent German and obviously as well as English, so you have other languages.
Yes, Mandarin, and I'm also trying to learn some French in the future, maybe.
Well, très bien. It's a very good idea. Mm-hmm. And I guess if you're from China, you probably speak a local dialect as well. Is that right?
Yes, of course. The Sichuan dialect is quite interesting, a little bit similar to Mandarin. Maybe if you live in Sichuan province for a while, I think you can understand a little bit of Sichuan dialect.
I've been there a few times and I can understand nothing. It sounds so different to me. But that's
still
because
needs. Yes.
Anyway, great. So you're based up in the north of China at the moment. You're working with Volkswagen, and you're preparing. Obviously, you're a student. You're preparing for IELTS. So why is IELTS important for you?
Well, I think there are two major reasons why I'm studying IELTS now. Reason one, because I'm not quite satisfied with my current job as a translator, because in my view, it cannot give me a sense of accomplishment. I find my passion in teaching foreign languages. So I want to study further in the UK for 1 year and then come back to China and have another career in the field of education. Yes, correct. And reason two is that I want to pick up my English.
Right.
Because
yeah. So do you find having a goal like IELTS motivates you to study more?
Yes, of course I have to, because I always want to get a band score 8. That's a little bit challenging for me, but I'm trying to achieve that goal.
Right, fantastic. That's great. I think it's really good to have that challenge and to push yourself a little bit as well. So obviously you're doing all of IELTS, all 4 skills. We're focusing on speaking quite a lot when we do classes. So in your speaking, for example, how are you studying? How are you getting ready for that?
I have to admit that before I took my first IELTS exam, I didn't prepare much for speaking and writing. At that moment, I paid a lot of attention to reading and listening. I didn't have much time to prepare for speaking, but but that was a mistake, because in the first IELTS exam I only got 6.5 for speaking. So until after I finished my first exam, I realized that I really need to improve my band score on speaking and writing.
Right. Now, obviously, you're working, so I understand it's incredibly difficult to find time if you're working as well. So how do you do that? How do you organize yourself to find time to study as well?
My gosh, this is a tricky question, because I always want to find the balance between work and study and life. That's something really difficult, and so during the weekdays, I mostly study after work. After I come back home, and then I may have some lessons with my private tutors.
Mm-hmm.
And also at weekends, I think I only study on Saturdays, because I'm not those kind of person that can always study. No, I need some time to rest. So on Sundays, I go out, I hang out with some friends and get to rest for my brain.
Well, absolutely. It's about balance, but I think also allowing your brain to process things as well. It needs time and space to process information and language, I think. That's great. So going into a bit of detail, when you sit down, you've come home from work, you're a bit tired, but you sit down and you're going to study or practice. How do you do that? What do you do exactly?
Because there are 4 parts in IELTS examination. So for each part, there are different learning strategies. From my point of view, regarding reading, students have to read actively, not passively. It's very important that you need to think about the structure of the whole paragraph, and then you can have a clear picture over it. And in addition, I think the candidates need to collect all any collocations or phrases that you think might be useful in the future. That's a very good strategy to gather many useful collocations and phrases. And regarding speaking, if possible, I think if possible, finding a private tutor is very useful, because you can directly get feedback from them, and the feedback is the fastest way to improve. Right.
That's interesting. So, I mean, you've talked there about different things about actually being active, especially when you're reading as well. Recording or making a note of language, so noting down new collocations and things that you learn, and getting feedback as well. I think you're right. Feedback is very valuable to help students improve. And I'm curious, out of all of the 4 parts of the IELTS test, which for you is the most difficult?
Writing. The writing task must be the most difficult part for me, because I'm not quite familiar with the format of the writing tasks. So I have spent a lot of time on it, and find my ways to organize ideas as well as paragraphs. And at the very beginning, it's quite difficult, because I didn't have a clue of what I should write and how I should write.
It's so difficult, but I think you're so right. I mean, understanding the format and the evaluation is so important, I think, for both speaking and writing. I mean, there are, as you know, there are band descriptors on the internet that tell you what you need to do for each level. And it's so important to understand what they're looking for, because that helps you decide how you write your task 1 and your task 2, or what kind of answers you give when speaking. So there's a lot of students listening who are also preparing to do IELTS in the near future. What tips, if you were to give your top 3 tips to the students, what would you say?
My top 3 tips. Tip 1, I think they should listen to all kinds of news, such as BBC, VOA, and so on, because students must be quite familiar with different accents from English-speaking countries. That's very important to help them understand the accents of the examiner, as well as accents in the audio in speaking parts.
Yeah.
And my second tip is keep reading. And reading is a quite powerful method to improve your reading skills.
Okay.
And tip 3. Students need to practice speaking every day. That's quite important. They can try to record themselves, and maybe at the very beginning they might feel embarrassed when hearing their own voice. That's also the truth for me. First, when I firstly record myself, I feel really not so comfortable to hear my own voice. But over time, you will get familiar with your own voice, and then you can find the mistakes in the audios, and then improve yourself day by day.
Right. Those are 3 fantastic tips. Really, really good. I thought number 2 was really interesting, right? Because reading, I think you're right, is one of the most powerful ways of learning language, increasing vocabulary and the grammar and everything. Sometimes I think people think that the skills are separate, that reading and speaking and writing are separate skills. And things like IELTS encourage you to think like that. You're preparing different skills, but actually they're all combined, right? They're all connected and linked. Reading can help your speaking in many, many ways. So I thought that was a great tip. Have you read anything recently? Have you read any books or anything interesting recently?
Yes, of course. Recently, I have finished a book called A Brief History of Humankind. That's a very awesome book, well written, and it can make people think about our current situation, and also some other social issues, as well as environmental issues. Force people to think about more, and maybe find some solutions to those problems.
And how does that help you in your IELTS speaking, for example?
That's quite helpful, because there are some basic topics in IELTS speaking part, such as describe a book that you read recently, something like this. So it's quite useful, because if you have really read this book, then you can speak more naturally, because you know what the writer has described in his book.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love the idea that when you're reading, it's thought-provoking, right? It makes you think about different ideas. Because as well, IELTS speaking is all about having lots of ideas. You need language, but you need something to talk about. You need to know about environment or mankind or topical issues that come up, and have something to say, right, as well.
Yes, totally agree.
Fantastic, great. Brilliant. Well, listen, Qin Yang, that is really valuable and very interesting information. Is there anything else you would like to tell students who are getting ready to prepare?
I want to say that don't be lazy, and try your best to prepare for it. Because no pain, no gain.
As my gym instructor used to say. Yes, absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, listen, thank you very, very much. I think that's really valuable advice. And good luck with your studying. And it sounds like you may have an interesting career change in the future as well.
Yes. I hope I can how to say it, I can really succeed in the career education, because that's really my passion, where my passion is.
Brilliant. I think with the kind of dedication and attitude you have, you will do very, very well.
Thank you.
Really good. Brilliant. Well, listen, let's wind up the interview. Thank you very much. That is so valuable. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Okay.
Great.
I hope that was useful for you. Some great ideas. Thank you, Qin Yang, so much. And if you like this video, please do subscribe, leave a comment, turn on the notifications, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.